Hello, wonderful, wonderful people. The conversation continues. I am Michael Dismuke. I'm a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures RPG, lead writer, Captain's Log Solo RPG, writer for Star Trek, freelance writer for also Star Trek, other fiction, and RPGs and a bunch of other stuff because I love to write, and that's why we do this show for so long. Right, Jim Johnson?
fresh approach to the introduction. I like it.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG and Captain's Log and Fallout and some other stuff that's coming up from Modiphius. Also a fiction writer, various and sundry titles, Star Trek, other stuff. More fiction to come, and just all around near do well. Happy to be on this podcast for 4+ years. Looking forward to year 5. Got some cool stuff coming. Can't wait to get into it. Plus, we got lots of other projects that we are working on, and looking forward to having those come out in due course. So, once again, we have a wonderful guest with us this evening, no stranger to our show. And without more ado, I'll just have her introduce herself and all the cool stuff that she's been working on. So, Kelli, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Kelli Fitpatrick. I am a science fiction and tie-in writer and game writer. I am a winner of the Star Trek Strange New Worlds contest in 2016 and a writer for the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. My Marvel novel came out in March. That is Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers Declassified. That is the life story of Captain Marvel told from the comics. I also write in a variety of genres, so westerns and space westerns, and fantasy and cyberpunk short stories and all kinds of stuff.
And you educate. Don't forget, you educate people how to write.
That is true. I have been a teacher since 2012. I taught English and journalism in Michigan for 8 years, and now I am teaching at the college level.
So fun. I've had the privilege of sitting in on a couple of your classes. So fun. Great students, great teacher, all that good stuff going on. So to set the stage for the conversation today, I'm going to talk a little about what I do in my day job and how that affects this story. So I'm a vice president of organizational development and communications at a company, a not-for-profit company in California. We have about 550 employees. One of the biggest things we've noticed since COVID is employee morale. We always were into it before, but since COVID, it's become a weekly topic for us, especially in the people and culture division. Why? Because how people feel affects how they work. How they're doing at home, economically, relationship-wise, affects how they do at work. The environment at work, whether it's positive or negative, the relationships with their direct supervisors affects how they do at work. And of course, all that affects our company. So we constantly study this. We survey about it. We look at data analytics, which brings us to the question for today, because there's a lot of, in social media, on the news, a lot of sadness, darkness, a lot of serious topics that are important and must be discussed. And so the question gets set up, does writing hopeful, happy science fiction and fantasy even matter right now? And that includes playing games about science fiction and fantasy. Do they matter right now? We thought this would be a great topic for this group to discuss. We'll pass it first over to you, Kelli, since you're our guest.
Yeah, this is a topic that I have strong feelings about. I mean, as a species on planet Earth, we all kind of went through the COVID pandemic and sort of experienced some of this firsthand. We were all kind of on the same timeline of societal trauma at that point, and some obviously experienced it worse than others, and some are still experiencing it. And I found a lot of grounding, I guess, in both optimistic fiction that looked at ways that humans can come together to problem solve really big, sticky, messy problems, and find a way forward through situations that look pretty dire and pretty dark. And so, like, optimistic doesn't necessarily have to mean all kittens and rainbows. This fiction can be. So I guess I'm defining this as not just like escapist, everything is happy in the story, but something that takes an optimistic view of the human spirit, that we can kind of overcome and persevere, and that the spirit of coming together is worthwhile, necessary, and maybe we'll win out in the end. I found that absolutely essential in kind of the worst points of the pandemic, and that included participating in a Star Trek Adventures campaign. And so that has kind of continued. We are, at a point in history now that's very interesting, and there are a lot of things going on and a lot of uncertainty. And I think people are maybe questioning whether some of the very long held assumptions that they've had about the world are true, maybe even assumptions that they've had about humanity. And so I think it's the role of fiction, and particularly science fiction, to explore these things and allow people the space to think about these things. But I feel like it's my personal duty to leave them with some optimism that yes, we can figure this out together.
Well said. Jim, what's your take on that?
I'm going to follow that, man. Other than to say, yep, agreed, 100%. I think the pandemic was really hard, and not only did we have the pandemic, we also had a shift in politics in the United States, and I mean really globally, right? We had a shift, and then that shift has continued to shift further and further to the right, and that's really hard for a huge swath of people. And Star Trek and optimistic fiction, hopeful fiction was my solace for sure. And I know during the pandemic that I think that Star Trek Adventures campaign that Kelli was referencing was the very same Star Trek Adventures campaign I was involved in. So I think there was a huge amount of escapism there, and a whole lot of positivity, and a whole lot of hope. And to be able to do that once a week or once every other week, and then to carry that kind of like positive vibe into the rest of the week was a huge thing for me. I mean, plus I know that we were doing other stuff too, right? We had especially during the pandemic, we had Shakespeare, and we had some other stuff that we were able to lean into, and just say, look, there's good stuff out there. We can hold on to the good stuff, and the good stuff will come around again. And I think that's something that science fiction can do really well, is like even when things are dire and bleak, and you got the absolute darkest setting imaginable, there's still those little sparks of light. There's still those little sparks of hope. There's still somebody carrying a torch or carrying a lantern for others on the path, and eventually there will be better things ahead. So I've been an optimist at heart, and I think if I really were to look back on it, I think it's because of Star Trek. I think Star Trek, even though I was a 7-year-old who didn't know anything, I think just the sense of something positive and vibrant seeped into the brain and never went away. So I think I think a lot of people use fiction as a means to escape their reality, whatever their reality may be. And I think it's really important for artists of all kinds to create that opportunity to show a little bit, whether you're a musician or an artist or a writer or a filmmaker, like whatever your art medium is, creation is critical now more than ever.
I noticed that effect too when there was new Star Trek that was very pathos. I wasn't getting what I needed out of Star Trek. And it was around that time, just by coincidence, they were already in production before the pandemic hit. And maybe if we were in a more optimistic society and there wasn't such a huge pandemic, a worldwide incident going on, plus all the economic effects of that show may have landed a little different for me. But in a time when you turn on the news and there's this social media fatigue, the brain's a muscle. If you do too much of one thing, it will wear out. That all of a sudden you go to look at your show, which is normally your optimistic getaway, and it's not. It's like, oh, what's happening here? That could have been some of the backlash at that time. Timing is everything. I think about that TV show Firefly, which was amazing. But then after 9/11, people were just not that interested in science fiction. They were interested in other things. So I know one of the things, going back to the work, is we try to create an environment where people can escape the social media fatigue. There had been a habit of where many companies were commenting on everything happening in the news. I know at my company, I said, we're not a news service. We have a very clear mission. We don't want people to have to think about the news when they come here. If they want to talk about it, that's fine, but we don't need to every incident that's happening in the news have an email commenting about it. They can watch CNN, they can watch Fox, they can watch whatever their chosen news place is. So that the work could be an escapist place where it's like, hey, here's your goals for the day. You've accomplished it. Let's celebrate. Go back into your life, what you got to do. And I feel RPG is kind of the same way, that we talk about always getting the pulse of our players and letting them escape. If they have a lot of problems in real life, maybe they don't want to have problems in the game. Right? Maybe they want to end with solutions and being super successful because they're struggling in real life. And that's the neuroscience and kind of the mental health of gaming at that point. What structures would you put into check? I should say, I think we've agreed now that happy, optimistic has its place if people want to play that. What kind of things would you do to build your game in advance to make sure people get that dopamine hit, that positive dopamine hit coming in and out of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody in this session has mentioned, session zero of like make sure you have a conversation with your players upfront about what kind of game do you want, what kind of tone do you want, and how much challenge are you prepared to handle with your character, and depending on those answers, like that's going to dictate like the overall, the overall kind of tone, but. I think you can build in if you have players, especially for more than one session, who have a backstory, and you can build in these little like opportunities for character moments. Jim is very good at doing this as a GM. That are just like really beautiful things. I think also it just encouraging scenes, like role play scenes, is just fun because then you're just in character on a starship. And so yeah, like those would be some of mine anyway. That would be, ways to make the game interesting.
Nice, nice. Do you think that creating that environment around the game can actually positively affect the community?
Mm,
It's a heavy question I'm asking because you said, Kelli, earlier that science fiction has led the way in some cases, right? In
mhm.
discussing tough subjects. Do you feel that players can walk away, game masters can walk away and be like, I can do something. I can make a positive change in the community because of a gaming experience. I have my opinion, but I want to hear your
Yeah,
opinions on that.
I can see multiple ways that like a real world impact could eventuate itself from a game. One of them is that like part of what Star Trek the show tries to do is to get people to challenge their assumptions as viewers. Maybe we're going to think differently after watching this show, or we're going to ask ourselves questions, or we're going to look at some issue differently. And I think in a well-run Star Trek game, that could happen. Like either the dilemma that's presented or the situation they're in raises questions that maybe the player hadn't considered before. Second way is just the community building and camaraderie that you get from being in a game, and particularly an STA game that encourages the players to work together and problem solve and rely on each other with a common mission of, we are here to serve, all sentient life. Um, is in itself building community that will inevitably kind of like spill out, into the larger community. And then there's the third of just, and you kind of already mentioned this, Michael, that like to serve other people, to tackle complex world issues, we have to take care of ourselves. And so if having fun at a gaming table does that, then that is refueling the, folks to go out and fight the good fight.
Excellent. Jim, what do you think has been your experience in that regard?
Yeah, I think a lot of what Kelli was saying touches on the essay I wrote in in Jason's book, Jason and Aaron's Second Star to the Right, right? This essay book that we all ended up in together. Yeah, there you go, Kelly. My essay was all about leadership in role playing games and how a role playing game can can create opportunities for someone to learn leadership skills and then apply those leadership skills to their real life. And I think Star Trek by far is the RPG setting universe, whatever that I've been playing for mumble years, and always I've seen, like, both in myself and all my players, I have seen, especially the very first group I played with, because two of the players were 14 and 15, and they were playing department heads, right? Because that's what we were seeing on Next Generation. And even though they were really young, they were watching the show and then kind of like they got what the characters were doing, right? And like, oh, I can try to do that. So one of them was playing the chief science officer and the other one was playing the chief medical officer. And it's funny you mentioned it, Kelly, because like even back then I was throwing them opportunities to do stuff with junior officers and saying, okay, you know what, you might be a 15-year-old kid, but in this game, in this moment, you are the chief science officer. They are looking to you for leadership and guidance. And this young officer is coming up to you with a personal problem. What do you do? How do you handle it? And of course, I didn't hit him with the heavy drama, right? But it was just like, okay, they're having some trouble, and they were able to help him out. And then, over the years, over the decades, really, you see those kids grow up and go on to management roles or leadership roles or whatever. And it's like, wow, I saw that foundational stuff happening in an RPG. Specifically in a Star Trek RPG, that I wasn't seeing in the games of D&D and Marvel and Amber and all the other games that we were playing together, because somehow Star Trek just has that thing. And I think it's the team building and the camaraderie and it's what Kelly was saying about the collective working toward a goal together, not just for money or power or fame. It's really just to better ourselves and to better each other and to better humanity in a broad spectrum, knowing that Star Trek, of course, it's not just humanity, it's the Federation or whatever your particular civilization is. So I think absolutely RPGs have a huge power to do that kind of stuff. But just in my personal experience, it's always been Star Trek RPGs that have really, really hit the needle on that. I'm sure that there are people out there who have played other games, D&D, even Cthulhu, and have had that same kind of experience. I don't know how they were able to do it, because I just haven't been able to make that.
I'll give a call out to Sentience. Al Spader designed a game that does it. Amazing. That's the only other game I've played that does it up there with Star Trek Adventures level.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's just the stuff that's baked into the setting, or if it's something else. But whatever that magic sauce is, Star Trek has it in spades.
I'm gonna guess what the magic sauce is right now with a word. When I design a game and when the players are designing the game with me, because we kind of design together at session 0, then I build the surprises in for them. It's intentionality. I think if I was given a Star Trek show to write or a book to write, I'd right away be like, ooh, at the end, what do I want them to learn? Going to Kelly's point about testing assumptions, so that all of a sudden it's like, you land on a planet and there's Romulans working with humans, and the Romulans have data pads watching the humans farm. Are you going to assume that the humans are servitude to the We just ran that in my game, and they did. They came in all, okay, we're going to have to, and they just found out the Romulans were observing human agricultural practices in a collective. They were working in a peaceful collective. And I remember they were like, oh, okay, hide the phasers. Yeah. But is that not something that happens in real life all the time? Seeing someone who's experiencing homelessness and assuming that they're a drug addict or something. It's like, no, go to work at 9 to 5. They just can't find a place to live. And so I build with intentionality in the game. And I think Star Trek allows that, so that intentionally at the end, they had a good time. They feel like their mind expanded. Hopefully they were the benevolent ones, their characters. They didn't have to learn the lesson from someone else, but one of the players stepped up and said, wait a second. And then they get that feeling of, oh, look at me. I'm such an advanced human or creature, whatever they're playing, whatever thing. So intentionality is what I find to be my magic sauce when I write and when I design a RPG game. Any other magic sauce that y'all use when designing?
I would say maybe something along the lines of like nuance that there are most ethically interesting scenarios are not cut and dry. Like there are complexities and there are mitigating circumstances and there are competing values. And an RPG is set up to handle that actually quite well because that creates interesting tension and decisions and things. And so in addition to making people think. That's always one of my goals is I want to make you think. I want you to walk away feeling like, huh, I hadn't considered that. That's interesting. So yeah, I think just trying to build nuance and maybe not um, stamp everything out of kind of a very well trodden trope.
Yeah, yeah. Right and wrong. They go in with assumptions of, oh, this is the right thing to do. It's like, wait a second, you throw in a little nuance, and all of a sudden everyone backs up, which is super cool. Going on to optimism a little bit more, I want to remind people that humans have survived as a species a lot through storytelling too. We live in an environment where people want to control the story and the narrative. We hear that so much, whether it's through broadcast media or trying to shut these people up or get these people to stop talking or whatever. We live in that environment because the forces out there know storytelling is so powerful. And we all have the potential to create our own story. um, Many of us have defied the story that was already written for us about how we're going to grow up, how we're going to live. We've defied that. Most of the creative, successive people have not followed the story that was written for them, and they wrote their own story. And I can't, impress enough about how people who play RPG and play the improv of this, even if they're improv acting and maybe not RPG, actually get the chance to explore that. And storytelling, it's an empowered medium. It's a power that people can't take you away. Keep telling your stories. Keep writing the stories. I know we've tested, all of us have played RPG and probably taken ideas from it to incorporate it into our own writing, correct?
I mean, yeah, both directions. Like it's there's so much I don't know. Humans have been telling stories as long as we've been around, like you said, Michael. And I think there's something about collective storytelling about like, let's gather in a circle and now we're going to create something
Mhm.
imaginary and engaging and immersive, like together, that is uniquely special. But from the practical angle, um, like storytelling is in my conception of it a temporal act. Like you have the story of who you are in this moment, but then you also have the history of where you've come and the history of your people, your country, whatever. And that is very important to have that and keep that. And then you have your aspirations and your goals and what are those except the story of where you want to go. So
Mm.
I think it's all story, like at the bottom. Right.
Mhm.
That's how we understand our movement through life. So what we're doing when we are playing an RPG like STA is the most fundamental act that you can do as a human.
Very good. Very good. Let's do one more go round just about about answering that question with everyone said. Does writing hopeful science fiction and fantasy, does it matter now? So Jim, we'll let you start as we go around.
Yeah, sorry, I was
Let's
I was thinking about other things to add to that conversation, but Kelli,
please do.
you and Kelly have been handling it so well. It's like, yeah, I can just say yes again.
For those of you who are watching the podcast, Jim is constantly looking up. He does that when he's thinking, and I love it. But he's been doing that a lot this episode, which means he's
Yeah,
mulling and meditating.
yeah, because I'm reflecting on what you said in that last episode that we did just recently, where um shoot, I just drew a blank. You were talking about being at WriterCon and how you were getting really inspired by being around other writers, talking about the writing life and the writing, just the act of creation and whatever. And so I'm vibing off of both of you, just thinking about how awesome RPGs are as a shared storytelling, method of things, because I've always believed, especially again, going back to how awesome Star Trek is as an RPG setting and a vehicle for telling story, is as a game master, like it's always been better for me to come to a session with kind of a vague notion of where things were going to go. Right. I usually have a really good inciting incident and a really good kind of like, cold open, before the credits kind of teaser get you into it. And then if you're with a group of people that you trust and that they trust you and you're all vibing together, right, you can just kind of like throw that stuff out there at them and just let them go and just see what happens. And by the end of that episode, that adventure, like however many episodes it takes to, or however many sessions it takes to get that episode done, it's going to be so much better than what I could have come up with by myself. And so there's that. And I know we've talked about that a million times on the show, but that's okay. But taking that to a writing perspective, what I've started to do, especially with this series I'm working on right now, is as a writer, I'm writing it, and sometimes I'll get to a plot point, and I'll think, okay, if I was player A, how would I approach this, and how would that change the story? If like one of my friends was doing it, or if Kelly was doing it, or if Derek was playing with me, how would he play this thing out? If Michael was doing this, how would it change that? So I'm stepping outside myself as a writer and bringing in like my perceived notions of other people as writers too, to say like, okay, now how would they spin that? And then it goes off in a slightly different direction that I didn't even think about. And that's really cool, because like that's all coming from RPG, and then it's filtering down into my stories. And I think that's just so powerful. And there's a lot of optimism, because like I try to pull all that optimism in, and it doesn't always have to be happy shiny flowers and joy. Like you can have optimism in a very bleak setting, right? In a very difficult
who was it?
Horrible world, right?
Someone came on our show AJ Fox came on. I think she's the one who said it, that dystopian stories are actually positive because you're already at the bottom of the barrel and you're working your way up.
Yeah.
Whereas utopian stories are like, uh-oh, something's about to blow up.
Right.
Yep.
So that's true.
Yeah. It can't possibly get any worse. So it's only-
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And if we're living in dystopia now, everyone look up. Raise your heads, because it only gets better from here.
And that's why, going back, that's why it's important for creators to create your stuff, because you are helping people you may not realize.
Yes.
To find that hope and to find that joy and to find that light. Right.
All right.
Okay. So that was a bit of a non sequitur. Michael, give me your question again, and I'll try.
It was perfect. No. Again, I was just asking the question we had at the top of the hour: does writing hopeful science fiction matter now? And I think you answered it. Yeah.
I think for me, I would just say yes.
Yeah. Kelly, any final words on it?
Yeah. What Jim said regarding it's, you never know how your writing is going to affect someone else. I've been pleasantly surprised and even shocked at how deeply some folks are moved by things I've written. It's humbling and deeply gratifying to know that you can make something and send it out into the world, and it matters. It does. But then I turn around and think, well, have I been moved by things I've read? Like, absolutely. It's I probably have been shaped as a person by a lot of the things that I read. Especially when I was younger. And so I think making art and sharing art is fundamental to our species. We are always going to do it. We're always going to need people who do it. And we particularly need it in difficult times. So now is absolutely the time to do it.
Yep. My answer is yes, it matters. Control the information you take in, because a lot of the information we take in nowadays is designed to get us to react in certain ways. So think about that before thinking, I'm watching the news. You might be doing more than watching the news. You may be playing to an algorithm. So I just encourage people, you have 100% control over what you take in, just like food, and what it's going to put out. Information is very powerful. So for gratitude, in fact, I'm going to start at the top of the gratitude. I'm actually going to give my gratitude to a video journalist producer. Some of you may already know the person. His name's Chris Chang, and he started at US News and USA Today, and he's on LinkedIn LinkedIn, and he does these explainer videos about topics in the news. And the reason why it's true journalism is he doesn't editorialize it. He just gives you the details, give you the research. In about 3 minutes, he'll explain a current topic in the news. And it's so refreshing just to get the facts and let me decide on it myself. So, and I've talked to him on LinkedIn. I comment on him all the time. I've even tried to find an angle to get him on this show, Jim. I'm like, how could I get Chris Chang on this show? I asked him, I haven't heard back from him yet. I said, are you a Star Trek fan by any chance? Because then I'll find an angle. But again, my gratitude is to good journalism, because it does exist out there, unbiased journalism. There are some talented artistic journalists out there who are getting the story out. So make sure to make an effort before you just pick any random journalist. Make sure that they follow the rules of journalism. And my gratitude goes to Chris Chang for doing that. Kelli, and then Jim, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I will just second Michael's pitch for good journalism. My gratitude is for my local writing community. I have several writers who live in the same town that I live in that I meet up with weekly, and we sort of hold creative space for each other, and we write together. And that has become a ritual and an escape and an essential part of my creative life and my creative process, but also just my community and my well-being as a human. And so I'm grateful that I have those folks and that we're able to do that together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. My gratitude is also to my extended collective family, whatever, of writers. I do not have a local group. I would love to find one, because I need that kind of it's one thing to be online with a lot of great writers, but like that physical sharing, breaking bread kind of connection is very different and very powerful. I mean, we've been doing that as humans for thousands of years, right? That's primal, fundamental kind of stuff, right? That's in all of us. But yeah, I'm grateful for all the writers. I mean, I was going to say I'm grateful for Aaron and Jason for inviting us into this book, to be able to share that experience with both of you and so many others. But I'll extend that further to just grateful for all the writers out there that I'm able to share time with, and passion and conversation, and just looking forward to doing more of that in the future. I'm also grateful to all the fans of Star Trek and our game and just everything else, and sharing their experiences and being a community in and of itself around not just Star Trek Adventures, but Star Trek, gaming in general. I think that's a really awesome community, and I'm grateful every day to be a piece of it, and to be able to share stuff back and forth.
Very nice. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm gonna go watch some Star Trek now. All right.
Virtual hug.
All right. Well, until next time, the conversation continues. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. IDIC.
Live long and prosper, y'all. Be safe, be well. We'll see you next time.